So it is Friday, and you know what that means. Time to grade week 8 of the Trump presidency. Here's a look back at yet another intense week. Watch.
Obamacare is imploding. It is a disaster, and 2017 will be the worst year yet by far.
The numbers that the White House doesn't like, and here they come, 14 million and 24 million. Those are the number of people that will be uninsured almost immediately after this plan goes into effect.
How confident is President Trump that any evidence will arise to support his claim?
I think he's extremely confident.
A federal judge in Hawaii has now ruled a temporary restraining order preventing this travel ban, the second one, the adjusted one, from going into effect.
We have done far more, I think maybe more than anybody's done in this office in 50 days, that I can tell you.
You now have an America First president, and it shouldn't surprise anybody that we have an America First budget.
Where was your passion and where was your concern when they all said that there was no connection to Russia? Where was it then?
I am 100% in favor. These folks, and they are tough, and they love their constituents, and they love this country.
What a week, huh? Joining us now, Guy Benson, political editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Molly Hemingway, senior editor for The Federalist, and Bud Jackson, a Democratic strategist. Welcome all. You just had a good look at what everybody dealt with and covered over the course of this week. Guy, let me start with you. What stands out in your mind as the pluses and minuses for the Trump White House?
Well, I think overall it was a pretty tough week politically for the White House and the president. First, he got sort of slapped down by the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee and Britain's GCHQ on the unsubstantiated wiretapping claims. And then there was a spate of, I think, really tough headlines, challenging headlines, some of which were misleading in my view, on the health care bill, on the president's budget proposal. But on the other hand, I think a lot of observers had said all along, Martha, that a Republican health care success to repeal and replace Obamacare was going to require major Republican leadership, particularly from the president. I think he has exhibited so far that leadership in a big way. And lastly, the president got a big assist from an unlikely source this week, a host on another network, making a big deal out of tax returns that ended up being, at worst, a nothing burger, at best, actually good for him.
Yeah. But let me get your thoughts on this morning, because I thought it was fascinating to see the president in the Oval Office and have him say, you know, everybody in this room was a no when we walked in here. Now they've all turned around. They are all yeses. The kind of active diplomacy that he's doing within his own party, because that's where he needs it at the moment, seems to be working on health care. What do you think?
I think my understanding was a lot of those people in the office were yeses to begin with, and he can't pass Trump care with everyone in that room. He needs to expand beyond that. And without question, right now, it's not going to pass the Senate. He would be extremely lucky, even if it passes the House, and things are going to have to change for that. And I think if we're looking at what happened this week, if I were to give him a grade, it would be for working Americans, and our poor people, it would have to be an F. For our more wealthy people who are getting tax cuts while poor people lose their health care under Trump care, they're going to be getting an A. So we're not, you know, with an administration populated by people from Wall Street and multimillionaires, what we're seeing so far is not unexpected.
You know, it strikes me, listening to Bud, Molly, that in the end, what's going to matter is what the American people take away from all of this. What is their actual experience with this budget? And that's going to take some time to figure out. What's their actual experience with health care? Do their premiums start to go down a little bit? Does their choice start to expand in time? Those measures are, you know, they're a long ways away.
Well, apart from even the policy issues, one of the ways that Americans tend to judge a presidency is, for fairly or not, on the economy. And this was another good week for the economy. Janet Yellen, the Fed chairman, came out and said it's time for consumers to be confident. They can be confident in the economy once again. This is a really underreported issue that is a strength for President Trump and was a big part of his messaging in his campaign after years of a sluggish economy. There was also the release of the budget, which has very minor cuts, but they still are symbolically significant and make a first strike against the administrative state, which is what we've heard is going to be a main theme of this presidency. And it's just a little bit of rollback here and there, nowhere near enough for what we actually need to do to have this size and scope of the federal government pulled back, but it is a start. On the other hand, the rollout of the health care bill did not seem to be going well. The CBO estimate, you know, whether you believe that or not, whether you think those are good estimates or not, suggested that it would be better to just repeal repeal Obamacare outright and replace it with nothing than replace it with this sort of shell of Obamacare on top of it.
Yeah, but I was struck by Angela Merkel's comments today. She basically said, yes, you know, we've decided that we are going to pay a little bit more of our fair share. We're working towards that 2% GDP goal in Germany. And it just struck me as something that was seen as so outrageous when it was brought up on the campaign trail, and yet now it's just sort of an offhanded remark in the middle of what Angela Merkel had to say, and it's basically a done deal as far as Germany's concerned, and there will be pressure on other members of NATO to follow suit. What do you think?
Well, we'll see what happens, but I also think what you're seeing is what's called diplomacy, which is something that the Trump administration is very deficient in. During the campaign, she was free to call it outrageous, but now she has to work with the administration. Of course, she's going to do the best that she can to sort of throw an olive leaf in his direction.
Guy, I mean, you know, it seems to me when you put something out like that and it's met with so much admonishment and so much shock in some quarters, and granted, some of his comments about NATO, people did find shocking. Even members of his now own administration don't agree with him on this. But it's clear that the game has changed in our relationship with countries like Germany. I mean, when you look at this discussion with Angela Merkel, you get the flip side of what you got with Benjamin Netanyahu. You have a new president, you have relationships that are sort of mirror image, and they're working on them.
Yeah, and you said it right. It's a new reality, and the German chancellor's remarks at the press conference reflected that. And I think overall, one of the big takeaways from that press conference was Merkel standing up there and saying, I think we've learned that it's better to talk to each other than about each other, which suggests that they had a very good, constructive conversation, which sounds to me like something other than deficient diplomacy.
Thank you so much, all of you. Great to have you here, Bud and Molly and Guy.
Thanks, Martha.